Tony Benjamin, welcome to DisruptHR.
Thank you, I love it.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. I don't know if you know this, but your video from your presentation was just rated last month as the top 5 most viewed videos with over 1,000 views.
Well, I didn't know the count, but I knew it was up there, but that's awesome.
How, that's incredible. So I guess what we're going to talk about today is some serious disruptive stuff.
Yes.
So give us a quick overview of the topic, and then let's dive into some specific questions that I have from your presentation.
Okay. Well, I've got a different view for HR. I look at it differently, and it's my vision to impart that to other people, to give them a different look at HR for small business, right? So I have this idea that every company should start with HR as a functioning aspect of what it does right from the beginning, right from the day a business owner says, I want to do it, that's what they do. And the problem is that I don't know that HR is ready for that in many ways, right? We as professionals, we're not quite ready for that aspect of it, to plan into the future and that. So that was, and I thought I might be lynched, for that opening line I gave. Yeah. That most HR people suck, but it was only a small groan, so it wasn't too bad.
Groans are good,
right.
But there was an upright outrising, and that's good.
Right, and I made it. I mean, it's how many months later now, and I'm still alive.
You're still alive.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So one of the things that you talked about in there is how small business owners need to start with HR. So how do HR professionals show that value to, right now in the Silicon Slopes, you've got all these tech companies that are starting and they don't have a lot of experience working with HR. How do we educate them on the value that HR can provide so that they want to bring somebody on? How do we sell small business owners on needing HR upfront?
Well, this is the great question. And this is what I deal with all the time as I talk to small business owners. And the answer to that is they know they need HR, they just don't know that it's HR that provides those things. Mm-hmm. So you talk to them and they all say the same thing. I want a killer culture, I want to be able to feel, I want to create from the ground up something like Google has or Apple or whatever. I want to create that type of creative culture and I want it to grow and expand and become dynamic on its own, right? They know they want to do that. And this goes back to what we were just saying. They don't know that HR does that. Yeah. And that's what we do. That's our sole function, right? We are the art of business, literally. But people don't know that. They think we process paperwork and we handle COBRA and, if someone gets out of line, we fire them, that kind of thing.
So one of the things I've noticed small business owners care a lot about, profitability. Now HR, and you talked about this, is historically a cost center. How do we transition HR, and you said in your talk that it's the center of all incoming revenue is human resources. I've also heard of some other companies locally and some people who are trying to make HR profitable. How do we get HR to be seen as the center of all revenue instead of just a cost center? Because that's one of the hooks that I think a small business owner would just absolutely love and say, okay, let's get HR in here.
Well, it's the central function of what we do. So if you think about it, our human capital, the people that work for us, they're out there and they're producing. They bring in the revenue. Your human resources function should be making sure that they're doing that at the most efficient level possible. So that's really where it's at. If you think there's nothing else in your business other than human resources that generates revenue. You got a machine that kicks out widgets?
Yeah.
Okay, that produces money because you sell them, but who sells them?
Yeah.
It's your human resources that do it, right? And that's why we as a department or we as professionals, we have to change people's view of how they see us. It's incumbent upon us to say to the small business owner, look, we would do this with any piece of capital equipment we buy, right? You buy that machine that produces 100 widgets an hour. If it's only producing 75, there's a problem, right? But it's the same with our employees. If they're not producing at their maximum amount they can, then you're wasting resources. And so, right, to the small business owner, I always say, what level of productivity are your employees producing right now? And generally their answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
And you say, well, we better figure out a way to measure that, huh? Because unless you're getting 100% of what they can actually do, you're not getting your money's worth out of paying that employee. So that's our job. That's what human resources does. We make sure that their most expensive investment turns a good profit for them every minute of every day. And that's not, with a whip standing over them making sure they do it right.
So what are some ways you can show that through metrics? I mean, people who love to understand the data, you get a CFO and you say HR is the center of all profit, they're going to say, no, because on a P&L, I just see I'm paying money out for payroll, and I see that our sales team are bringing in revenue. So like, what are some metrics or ways that you could actually show from a financial perspective how HR is doing what you're saying? Because I totally agree. Without people, you can't do anything, and your sales team are people, and your manufacturers are people, and everybody's people. How do we show it financially?
So the first is to have that conversation we just had, because that's a mindset difference. Yeah. That isn't something I can show on a P&L, right? Yeah. But number two, look at your bottom line. Look at what you're doing. And if you're finding that you're making a profit, but your margin is, say, 40%, and it should be 60%, well, there might be some pricing issues there, but it might also just be that sales team, right? I have a client right now. They have someone in sales that thinks that, they can go out and do favors for everybody, right? And kind of cut that price as much as I can to help you out. Well, it's undercutting the business. They're losing a huge chunk of what that person could bring in, right? So you improve that person. So how we do it, let's just take revenue across the board and let's break it out by per employee and let's see what we get. And then measure it that way. Why not look at it over time? Are they improving? Are they not? Look at efficiency metrics, right? They're doing it. I have a client right now who wants no one to ever quit from his business. Nice. Like he wants to hire them and they retire from that same business.
That's awesome.
I think it's cool, but you're never going to know whether or not you want them to stay there, right? Unless you know how efficient are they being, how good are they doing. It's not just a gut feel. Yeah. It's a real, how much money is coming in per employee.
I love it. Okay, that's great. So another thing that you talked a little bit about that I find really interesting. So small businesses, my question is, are you saying they should bring in full-time HR? Should they bring in contract consultants? Or you even mentioned PEOs. So for a small business, what do you think is the best solution? I mean, is it dependent on the business, or when do you introduce a full-time HR person on staff?
That's the magic question. Every business is going to be a little bit different. But you need an HR function very early on, right? Mm-hmm. So we know that you hit that magic number of 15 employees and federal law starts to hit you, right? Yeah. But you need it before then, because if your people are harassing each other and doing things that get you in trouble, you gotta nip that in the bud before you cross 15. Yeah. So early on. But you can't afford to pay for somebody there full time. You just can't, right? Mm-hmm. So bring on contract people early on, and you bring them up. And when you get to a certain point where the workload is too much, then you need someone full time. But that function has to start. So of course I'm a consultant, so I think everybody should hire me, right? Yeah. But yeah, bring on some sort of outside person that can help walk you through that. Internal people can still do the paperwork and that, but you need someone to guide that from the very beginning. For the subject of PEOs.
Yeah, like as a consultant, what do you think about PEOs?
I hate them. I hate PEOs. You think about it, a PEO doesn't make money from the quality of your culture or anything that you do. A PEO makes money the more people you hire, right? Because they charge you by head count. Oh, and if you go to them and you're like, hey, I want to lay off so-and-so because they're just not performing, or I need to cut head count by 5%, what are they going to say to you? Yeah, cut the amount you're paying me, right? And so there's a conflict of interest. Their interests are not aligned with yours, and therefore they just kind of do what they want. They'll advise you. Now, any good HR person, you know this, any good HR person, when you come to them with a problem, they're going to say the same thing to you. Well, that depends, right? Mm-hmm. Get details, more details. And then I like to give options, right? Well, you can do this, but you're going to get sued, so don't do that. You could do this, and that's better, or here's the best solution, right? Those kinds of things. PEOs don't have any interest in doing that to you. The longer you talk to them, in some cases, the more money they earn. If you let go of the person, they earn less, right? But over time, payroll people are the same way, right? They have a vested interest in how many headcount you have. And another aspect, they don't care what your culture's like. Yeah. They really don't. They're there to solve major problems for you and get health insurance for you so you don't have to worry about it. And the more people you have, the better.
So our next Disrupt event is going to be HR consultants versus PEOs in
Bring
a room.
It on. Bring it on. I'm good.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so another question I have for you is, You talk about how you need to come with answers, not with just questions. I love it, right? And I don't think that's true just for HR, it's for any employee. You need to think through the possible situations, what's the best option, pick that route, go to your manager, say, here's what I think we could do to implement. It just makes business so much better. It's the coaching philosophy and mentality. What do you do, though, when you're an employee and you go to your manager and they don't want to listen to your idea, or you go to a different leader and they don't want to listen? When you're an employee with a great idea and no one is listening, what advice would you give them?
Well, this is the great transitional piece of what we're doing right now in human resources. I kind of think we're coming to ourselves, but this is the issue, right? And small business especially has this problem, because maybe they hired you just to handle those files that they keep in a cabinet, and you could do the same thing the receptionist does, right? It's all up. They're not looking for anything different. And first of all, I'd say you make the business case. One of the key factors we as HR people need to do is we need to be able to read financials. So know what you're talking about. Yeah. If the company's making money, find out why. You should understand the business process. I worked at one company where I was a certified installer for their program, nice. or their stuff, right? So I could go and I could do it. And then I learned from the CFO, where do we make money? Where do we don't? Where do we spend money? He's like, stop spending money on recruiters. Yeah. And I just saluted it and said, okay, we got to do something different, right? Yeah. But it helped. If you can speak the language of business, that helps. So that's number one. Okay. Number two, then, is that you have to be able to go in there and you say, this is why this piece is happening. And if you don't know that, you better find out. If we have high turnover, why is that? Employees feel isolated. They feel separated from everybody else, right? I worked in one company. We had these little tiny offices in 14 different states. And how do you get everybody to feel connected, right? Yeah. You've got to do that. And then finally, so know why, and then come up with a solution and give that to them, preferably before they're asking you about it.
Oh, okay? Proactive, yeah.
Being proactive, ahead of the curve, and guiding a direction. And then have a big vision in place for that as well, right? So what do we look like now? What are we going to look like in a year? And what are we going to look like in 5 to 10 years? Yeah. And you should be gearing towards that. But here's the truth, and this is what I was talking about in my thing. What I was speaking is that if you are at a company who doesn't want to do that, you're not trapped. Go somewhere where they do. And I don't want to say, hey, go quit, by the way, because...
Why not? Why not, though? Like, if you're unhappy, yes. Go find something that will be fulfilling emotionally and financially, and go find something you're going to love.
Exactly. And we know we're in HR, right?
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that the employee is in charge of that relationship now. There's no reason for us, zero reason for us to stay in a situation where they don't listen. And guess what? The truth is that the market will fix this for you. Heck, we're in Utah. Yeah. How many people are there here? There's not that many. We all know each other, right? And the word gets out about a company that blows off one HR person after another. I could list 4 or 5 companies for you right now.
Oh, do it.
Yeah. No. I don't want to get in trouble. You didn't hear that. So, but anyways, I can name companies, right? And it's because they keep blowing through HR staff. And why is that? Because people get there and they're like, yeah, you're not listening, so I don't want to do this. Yeah. And that has to be the ultimate backdrop. Let's let the market take care of them, because when they're paying 3 times what any other company is paying for HR because they have a reputation, eventually they'll get it. And that's the only way we're going to do it. So that's what I'd say, right? And we as HR people have to do that. We're at a turning point. If we don't figure this out, business leaders are going to try and do it for themselves. And then they're not going to need us, right? All those people publishing articles from PEOs saying they don't need us. This is why. Because we're not keeping up with the need. We're not making that transition.
There it is. We're not keeping up with the need. We got to stay with the transition.
That's right.
I love that.
That's right.
Okay, thank you so very much for all you're doing to help disrupt our profession and take us to new levels. And we just are so glad that you're part of this group.
Oh, this is awesome. I love Disrupt HR. Everywhere I go, I tell people, are you going to be there? Are you going to be there? If not, you need to be there. My clients hopefully are coming, right?
Good.
They can see different ways of looking at it. So Thank you for letting me be part of this.
Well, and you're a pro. Over 1,000 views in just a month.
Woohoo!
So way to go.
We're going. We'll share more.